If we're being completely honest, we overcomplicate Ramadan. We think that the more we do, the better we are. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome back to another episode of A Muslim Radio. Okay. I know it can be extremely overwhelming seeing so much Ramadan content right now. Everyone's posting about it, everyone's showing you what they're doing to prepare for Ramadan, and it can kind of feel like, I don't know if I'm doing enough kind of thing, and you can feel like underprepared for Ramadan. And before you roll your eyes thinking, great, another Ramadan guide, hear me out. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you need to make a 10-page checklist and you need to attend all these lectures and you need to do this and this to prepare for Ramadan and make sure you eat the most nutritious, healthy, yummy meals and like level up, all of that at the same time, because let's be real, absolutely none of that is realistic or feasible for the average Muslim. Unless you know it is for you, then that's great. Please keep doing that. But if we're being completely honest, a lot of us, myself included, start off Ramadan really strong, really motivated, and then we crash by like day 10 or even before that. We set impossible goals that are not realistic at all. We compare ourselves to everyone else's perfect Ramadan routine, and then we feel guilty or whatever because yours feels a bit basic compared to everyone else's. But this Ramadan, let's do it differently. And I want to start by saying that it's completely okay if you're not 100% ready. Like, that is the whole point of Ramadan. It's to try and become better. It's to attain taqwa and it's just to try, really. So not being prepared is fine. And side note, one thing you definitely don't need to be doing to prepare for Ramadan is getting a Ramadan wardrobe filled with abayas for Ramadan. Like, honestly, 1 or 2 will do the job. Where are you even going? So this episode, we're going to be talking about how to keep it real this Ramadan, how to keep it sustainable, and how personal Ramadan is. A Ramadan arc, if you will. The kind of Ramadan that might not look impressive from outside perception, but could be the most transformative one yet. We're going to break down misconceptions, redefine what progress actually looks like, and remind ourselves why even the smallest efforts matter more than we realize. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm feeling absolutely fatigued by Ramadan content right now, and I get it because I do it too. Like, this is the time that content creators can make the most out of the relatability of Ramadan, and when businesses can commodify Ramadan and get the most out of that too. But I feel like, okay, Ramadan is fast approaching and may Allah allow us to reach it, and I'm seeing everyone's really cute Ramadan decor, and obviously I'm falling into the trap of comparison, and that's something that is already ruining my Ramadan before it even starts, and that's the dopamine overload. Like, I feel that I'm experiencing FOMO and I'm missing out, and it just doesn't make me feel good and ready for Ramadan, even though it's something that's unnecessary anyway. Like, you don't need to make any changes to get into the spirit of it. That's something I want to talk more about, the dopamine aspect. So if we're constantly refreshing our phones, switching from app to app, scrolling through TikTok, watching all these different videos in a short time span, our brains are essentially on overdrive. We've conditioned ourselves to quick hits of dopamine, and that's dangerous because it makes slower and deeper and quieter acts of worship feel less rewarding. Because Ramadan will come around and suddenly we're trying to sit down with the Quran expecting to feel really good about it, but our brain is craving the instant gratification that unfortunately doesn't come with it. So before Ramadan, I think it's necessary that we start reducing the time we spend scrolling, unnecessarily talking about nonsense, and unnecessarily engaging in activities that won't benefit our journey that we are about to embark on. Because, okay, you want to be the best version you can be in Ramadan, but how are you going to do that if the only thing you're exposing yourself to is stuff that's not really going to give you the potential to yearn for that ascendance in your faith? Okay, that didn't really make a lot of sense, but I'll give you an example. It's Ramadan and I want to not listen to music, but I'm used to grabbing my phone and scrolling on TikTok, which is a music app, like at least 15 times a day. How is that helping me to detox and reduce my exposure to music? Or I want to start dressing more modestly. I want to feel good in my hijab, but I'm exposing myself to people online who encourage me or influence me to do this and that to feel beautiful in my hijab. It's not going to work because I'm setting myself up for failure. I'm not exposing myself to a good example, so how do I expect my subconscious to want for anything different? Imam al-Ghazali talks about how excess dunya dulls the heart, but fasting reawakens our spiritual sensitivity. Ramadan isn't just about physical fasting, it's about fasting from distractions too. He talks about this concept in more detail in his book, which is honestly so eye-opening. I recommend everyone read it if you're looking for like Islamic knowledge in an easy to understand kind of way. So he talks about fasting in the sense that it doesn't just boil down to avoiding food and drink. It's about detaching from worldly excess and purifying the heart so it can better receive divine guidance. He says, the purpose of fasting is to weaken the forces which are shaitan's means of leading us back to evil. It is a lock upon the door of pleasures and desires. So essentially, it's redirecting your heart and strengthening it to not even want to give in to pleasures and desires, I think. He then goes on to describe 3 levels of fasting, each representing a deeper stage of spiritual refinement. Now stay with me because it is really interesting. Okay, the first level, which is the most basic level that we can all basically have in the bag, is the most common form of fasting. It's observed by anyone who refrains from eating and drinking. It's kind of like the bare minimum. And while it fulfills the obligation, it doesn't imbue you with any spiritual elevation. So technically someone can fulfill this level of fasting, but they could perhaps be simultaneously engaging in like biting or lying or bad mouthing or whatever, which all weaken the spiritual benefits of Ramadan. And the Prophet ﷺ warned against this in a hadith. He says, there are those who fast and get nothing from their fast except hunger and thirst. And there are those who stand in prayer and get nothing from their prayer except sleeplessness. So if we're only fasting because it's an obligation and we try to do anything to just like, get through the day, like I'm just trying to get through the day so I can eat, then we completely lose the deeper purpose. The second level goes beyond abstinence from food and drink. It requires guarding the senses and the heart from anything displeasing to Allah. It can include avoiding gossip, backbiting and unnecessary talk, lowering your gaze and controlling your desires, guarding the heart from bad thoughts and engaging in worldly distractions. If this level is achieved, then fasting becomes a much more transformative experience, refining the soul rather than just being a physical challenge. So one of your goals this Ramadan may very well be not talking badly about someone or not swearing. The third level is the highest level of fasting. It's where even thoughts, desires and distractions from Allah are restrained. This means fasting from anything that distances the heart from Allah. What it can look like is fasting from ego and desires, no seeking validation, praise or material success, no complaining about hardships, and only having full reliance on Allah. Being completely present in your worship, so every prayer, every dhikr is done with deep sincerity, not just words you repeat. This breakdown is incredibly powerful because it takes the emphasis away from fasting being purely a physical deprivation to a holistic purification of the mind, body and heart. We also need to realize that it is never about the result. It's always about the intentions and about the small steps you take towards your goal. Even if you never reach your goal, every step towards refining our fast makes it more meaningful and rewarding. It's imperative to say that Ramadan is not the kind of thing where if you haven't started it off perfectly or if you've fallen off a little bit, then you're doomed, because that's not true. You have a whole month, and if it starts off rocky, then you have time to try again. So I'm sure we've all grown up with so many misconceptions about Ramadan and like habits we need to unlearn. Guys, I cannot tell you how many times that me and other people are like shocked when we hear something for the first time and realize it's like completely not true, or something is true. It could be something that you think is like so obvious, but like you've just grown up with the thought that it's like not true. Like, you know what I mean? Let's go through some of those quote unquote myths or misconceptions misconceptions, or even habits we just need to unlearn. Okay, the first one is that you need to be doing everything, like Taraweeh, full 20 rak'ahs, full Quran khat, charity, tahajjud, halaqas, all of these things, or else you're wasting your Ramadan. Obviously, if you can do everything, then that is great. That's good for you. You should try to do as much as you can. Ramadan is incredibly personal, and your worship should meet you where you are, not where someone else says it should or where social media says you should be. We should definitely strive to read the Quran during Ramadan, but what's more important is actually reflecting on it and trying to understand what we're reading. Ibn al-Qayyim discusses that building a strong foundation that lasts is extremely important. He says, the strength and firmness of an action depends on the strength of its foundation. A weak foundation will lead to collapse, while a strong one will withstand storms. Many people will start Ramadan with big goals, but struggle to maintain them because they didn't lay a realistic, well-structured foundation. So instead of aiming for intensity, we should focus on consistency, picking an act and staying consistent with it. So don't overload yourself with extreme Ramadan goals. Build habits that will last and can last beyond Ramadan. He often refers to the Prophet ﷺ's teachings that Allah loves small, consistent actions more than big, inconsistent ones. He argues that spiritual endurances come from gradual progress. So he says, the one who walks steadily, even if slowly, will reach his destination, while the one who rushes without preparation will collapse. Okay, the next one is funny because actually my friend asked me this a year ago or something, and I cannot believe this was a legitimate debate on social media. Brushing your teeth breaks your fast. Bro, imagine praying next to someone who believes this. Like, please. Using a miswak or a toothbrush, obviously without swallowing toothpaste, does not break your fast. The Prophet ﷺ used the miswak often when he was fasting. Please, for the sake of everyone else around you, brush your teeth. Thank you. Next one. The idea that you need to finish the Quran during Ramadan completely, or you've like failed Ramadan or something. Again, this is kind of like my previous point. Finishing the Quran in Ramadan is a great goal to have, but what is more important is understanding it and implementing it. Because really, how many of us read the Quran and actually understand what's being said? And honestly, you can just pick one area, chuck it in Google and do some research and try to understand what it is you're reading. There is so much to unearth and uncover from it and understand and implement. So let's do that. Honestly, the point of all of that is don't let anybody make you feel like your Ramadan is not good enough because you have not exhausted the list of acts to perform during the month. Ramadan is incredibly personal. It's a journey to betterment. It's an opportunity to get closer to your faith, building new habits. It's not a checklist activity where you mindlessly tick off all these goals like, oh yeah, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Another one is you have to sleep as little as possible to be good in Ramadan. Some people act like if you get more than 3 hours of sleep, you're wasting your Ramadan. But even the Prophet ﷺ rested. If you need to nap so you can function, nap. If you need to sleep so you can pray better, sleep. Ramadan isn't about exhaustion. It's about managing your energy so that you can do more with the time that you have. Guys, I really think we underestimate how valuable all the small deeds we make during Ramadan are. The success and the change comes from all of those quiet little deeds between you and Allah. Those are the acts that allow your heart to soften and get closer to Allah. I'm going to tell you a story that reflects this. So the Prophet ﷺ once told a story about two men from the same tribe. One was martyred in battle, while the other one lived for one more year and then passed away. One of the companions later had a dream where he saw these two men at the gates of Jannah, but the one who lived an extra year was admitted first. So he was shocked and told the Prophet ﷺ about his dream, who explained to him, did he not fast another Ramadan? And did he not pray such and such number of prostrations? Basically, because this man lived to see another Ramadan, his rank in Jannah elevated, even though the first man died a martyr. So what does that tell us? Ramadan is a gift. every extra suhoor, every extra prayer, every extra moment we spend in dhikr, in contemplating and comprehending the words of Allah, it all adds up in ways we can't even imagine. It changes our mindset from I need to do this Ramadan perfectly to every little act of worship counts more than I realize. If we're being completely honest, we overcomplicate Ramadan. We think that the more we do, the better we are, but actually doing less is more if it's more consistent. What if instead of trying to do everything, you focus on just 3 core goals? The first one is make one improvement in your salah. Maybe it's praying on time. Maybe it's more sincerity, like trying to have more khushu' in your prayer. Maybe it's praying an extra sunnah. The second one is make one Quran habit. Maybe it's reflecting on one ayah a day, or maybe it's putting Quran on in the background, or maybe it's even trying to memorize more Quran. And the third goal is performing one act of service. Maybe it's helping your family, giving some charity, or making dua for others, or even mending a tie of kinship. When you make a goal that is simple, you can actually stick to it. My favorite thing about Ramadan is how personal your worship becomes. Like, this is my time. Ramadan is my time to focus on my betterment, my time to focus on acts that can strengthen my relationship with my creator. And everyone is on their own little personal journey, and it's just, I feel like we all just feel so much better in Ramadan because we're quite literally doing what we were created to do. It's actually like, what do I want out of this month, and how can I use this month to transform into something a little better than before? And that's where the quiet success comes in. Not every act of worship has to be seen or shared. Not every Ramadan habit has to be aesthetic. You don't have to be visibly like better to have done some improvement. The best du'as are the ones that no one hears. Like, sometimes I'll be in sujood and I'm struggling to articulate what it is I want, so I'm just like blabbing, but I know that Allah knows what's in my heart. Allah knows what I actually want from Him, and that's the kind of faith and the kind of trust and the kind of tawakkul we need to have in Allah. Like, you need to know that He can hear you. He knows exactly what you want to ask of Him. Even if you're struggling to say it, He knows. He just wants you to go to Him. Take that step. The best acts of charity are the ones that no one knows about. Like, there is no need to post it on Instagram. There is no need at all. Like, I honestly really have a bone to pick with people who go on deployments to help those in need and will take an aesthetic video, like taking out boxes from the truck or hugging some poor random children and then like just slapping a hadith about charity on top with that emotional nasheed, you know the one. Honestly, there are so many problematic things with posting content like that. Why are we publicizing our charity? Since when did it become an aesthetic? Why are we shoving cameras in children's faces? Like, how dystopian is that? I don't know. It just lacks the sincerity for me. Charity should be so private. If you're sharing a link, etc., I think that's fine, like trying to encourage people to give charity, but there's just absolutely no need for the like videos of you actually doing it. I think the best changes or sacrifices you make for the sake of Allah are the ones that no one knows about, or better put, the ones that you aren't doing for others' approval. Especially if you want to make a change during Ramadan, you shouldn't have to worry about others will say, because you're doing it for yourself. Like, I really hate the term Ramadan Muslim. Like, what do you mean? Someone who's made a change in Ramadan becomes a Ramadan Muslim because they're not actually doing it like for anything, they're just doing it because it's Ramadan. That's great. You should be happy. You should be happy that someone is making the change to be better during Ramadan. Like, that is actually quite literally what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, you should be encouraging everyone and have the benefit of the doubt and make dua for that person to carry on doing what they're doing even after Ramadan. And one more thing, guys, we are not going to be comparing our Ramadan to anyone else's, okay? Your Ramadan is going to look different, and that is okay. Someone else may have different capabilities than you, may have more time than you, and it's okay. Your journey is yours. It's nobody else's. It's nobody's business, okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, a person who remembers Allah in private and sheds tears will be under His shade on the Day of Judgment. So your quiet moments of ibadah, they matter the most. So to conclude, if Allah has allowed you to reach Ramadan, He's giving you another chance to reset, another chance to heal, and another chance to seek Him. So let's go into Ramadan with the mindset of achieving quiet successes between us and our Creator. Remove all the noise, all the comparison, and focus on sincerity. And if all you do this month is try, then you've already won. Remember, a small action done with sincerity is greater than a large action done without it. May Allah allow us to enter Ramadan with open hearts, fill our days with barakah, and accept every little act we do and bring us closer to Him. Remember guys, anything that is good is from Allah, and any mistake is from myself. Assalamu alaikum guys. See you next time, inshallah. See ya.